In the previous section, we talked about relations and how relations were ordered pairs, and we listed domains and ranges of relations. And that's mainly what we talked about in the last section, was how to get a domain and range for a relation. Now we're moving on and we're going to talk about functions. And functions are just special relations. Functions are still relations, but not all relations are functions. So functions, the way you can tell if you have a relation that is a function or not, is functions can't have repeating x values. So if you'll remember back to when we were listing domains of relations, I told you that if you had an x value, you didn't have to list it twice in the domain. Well, that's fine for when you're just listing domains and ranges. But when we start looking at functions and the question will be asked, is this a function or not? You can answer yes as long as your ordered pairs do not have a repeating x in them. So it could be drawn a couple of different ways. Let's look at these pictures down under number 1. On the first one, I've got 4, 6, 8, and 10 on the left side, 1, 4, 5, and 3. If you'll notice, if I were to make, we did this with relations, if I were to make ordered pairs out of these, I'd have 4, 1, 6, 3, 8, 4, and 10, 5. You'll notice there were no repeating x's. In other words, I didn't have anything on the left side, any number on the left side that had 2 arrows coming out on it. So this one we would say is a function. Okay, look at the B. Under B, look at the number 6. The number 6 has 2 arrows coming out from it. If I've got a picture with 2 arrows coming out from it from the x side of the graph, then this one would not be a function. I'm going to abbreviate function FNC. Because I would, if I'm listing ordered pairs, I'd have 4, 1 again. This time though, I would have 6, 4, and then I would have 6, 3. And then I would have nothing to go with 8. 8's not going anywhere. I'd have a 10, 3. Now, I've got 6's repeated in the x slots, so that can't be a function. Notice I also have 3's repeated, but those are in the y spots. That's okay. You can have repeating y's and it still be a function. You're really looking at the x values for it to be a function. So let's look at C. Is it a function or not? Look at it for just a second and see if you are going to answer yes or no. You should have answered no, because look under the x column. I've got 5 occurring twice. So this one is not a function. All right, when we're looking at graphs, this is going to be one of the easiest things we do all semester long. It's wonderful. When we're looking at a graph and we're trying to decide if it's a function or not, we're going to do something called the vertical line test. All right, so we need to remember a vertical line goes straight up and down like that. On a graph, if I ask you if you have a function or not, what you're going to do is you're going to take a vertical line. If you can draw a vertical line anywhere on the graph and you can touch only one place on the graph, then it is a function. So one place, if we draw a vertical line, and you could have to draw multiple vertical lines, that one would be a function. If you draw your vertical line and you touch in more than one spot, then it is not a function. So let's look at A. If I drew a vertical line, I'm just going to sketch some in here. I'm only touching that graph each time in one spot. So that one would be a function. If I'm looking at B, look what happens when I draw my very first vertical line that I draw. I'm hitting this graph in 2 spots. So that would not be a function. All right, in the next one, it looks like I'm going to trace this graph. It goes like that. All right, I'm going to use a red vertical line so you can kind of see the difference. If I draw a vertical line anywhere on this graph, I'm only touching it in 1 spot, so that makes it a function. Vertical line test, easiest thing ever. Okay, let's look at function notation. When I'm talking about function notation, I'm talking about using this notation f of x. When we have graphed before and we graphed lines, you always had y equals mx plus b, and you had a y over on the left side. Well, we're going to talk about functions, which really functions are still equations like we've worked with before, but function notation uses that f, and it just means a little bit different notation than what we're used to. What it's telling me is that I'm going to have an input value. And so if I ask you to find f of 3, that means that 3 is my input. I'm wanting you to just replace x with a 3 and then work it out. We have done things like this in the past. We just didn't call it function notation. We have replaced x's with numbers and worked things out in the past. So don't let that throw you off, just having the function notation. Now, in addition to using an f, there are 2 other function notations that you're likely to see. A lot of times they use g of x, still is a function notation, or h of x. Those are still meaning the exact same thing. So let's look over here on the next page and let's talk about some functions. Here I've got an f of x at the top, 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. And I'm asking you in the A part to find f of negative 1. So that means I want you to put in a negative 1 wherever there's an x, and then we're going to use order of operations to work it out. So f of negative 1 equals 2 times negative 1 squared minus 3 times negative 1 plus 1. And then we're just going to work it out. Negative 1 squared is a 1. So I've got 2 times 1. A negative 3 times a negative 1 would be positive 3 and then plus 1. So I've got 2 plus 3 plus 1. That's 5 plus 1. That would be 6. So f of negative 1 equals 6. Very simple, very easy. These are things we've done before. F of 0 means I'm going to put in a 0 wherever there's an x. So 2 times 0 squared minus 3 times 0 plus 1. Well, that's going to go away. That's going to go away. That's a 0 there. So f of 0, all I'm left with is that 1 that doesn't cancel out. So f of 0 equals 1. Now, here's our favorite thing to do, fractions. F of 1/2, I'm going to put in then 2 times 1/2 squared minus 3 times 1/2 plus 1. All right, use order of operations. So I need to square my 1/2. 1/2 squared would be 1/4. 1 times 1 on top, 2 times 2 on the bottom. A 3 over 1 times a negative 3 over 1 times a 1/2 would be negative 3 over 2 plus 1. I'm going to keep going. I can cross cancel. And so I'm going to get 1/2 minus 3 over 2 plus 1. I'm going to keep going. Negative 1/2 minus 3/2 is a minus 2 over 2 plus 1. Well, minus 2 over 2 is a minus 1 plus 1. Look at there, I'm getting a 0. All of that ending up with 0 in the end. The next ones that are on this workbook page are f of x plus 1, and I'm putting those in for functions. These are things that you're going to do in Math 112, so I'll save those. We're not going to work on those. You're not going to have any in your homework that deals with those. Finding functions from a graph. Remember, I'm asking you to put that in for x, and I'm wanting to know really essentially on the graph what is the y that goes with that x. So if I'm looking for 1, I would go over here to 1 on the x-axis and then find my y value right there. Looks like it is positive 2. So f of 1, didn't mean to put a negative there. F of 1 would be equal to 2. That's how you do it on a graph. On this one, is f of 40 positive or negative? Well, let's think about this. If I'm out here at 40, that's way out here. Whereas this graph looks like it's going with the arrow, if I'm way out here at 40, it looks like it's going to have to be negative because that graph is going down. All right, let's talk about domains of functions. Remember, domains are x values. So we are going to try and find domains of functions. If we have a rational expression, we're going to set the denominator equal to 0 to find the domain. That's going to give us the numbers that we have to stay away from. Remember, we've done some problems that have asked you about restricted values. You're finding those values that would make that denominator 0, and you're staying away from them. And we're going to be writing our answers in interval notation for these. So if I'm looking at this next one, number 6, I've got negative 1 over x minus 7. It is a fraction. I have to worry about x minus 7 equaling 0. So let's find out what number would be bad. Well, if I set it equal to 0 and I solve it, that means if I had a 7 in for x, that would be a bad number. So the way you write, let me just show it to you as a picture. I've got 7 here, and I've got an open circle at 7. So I can include 7 in my interval notation. I can include any number to the left or any number to the right, but I have to stay away from 7. The way you show this in interval notation, I can come from negative infinity to 7, and 7 has to have a parenthesis because it's going to be an open circle. I can go from 7 all the way out to infinity, union those to show interval notation. Okay, on this next one, you've got x squared minus 4 in the denominator. Incidentally, we don't have to worry about numerators on domains because on fractions, we're worried about making that denominator a 0. So if I have x squared minus 4, I'm going to set it equal to 0. Let's factor it into x plus 2 and x minus 2. So some of you may be able to look at this and tell me the two numbers I'm going to have to stay away from. I'm going to go ahead and work it out so you can see it worked out. Set each one of those equal to 0. I'm going to get a negative 2 for this one after I subtract 2 from both sides. For this one, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So that's going to give me positive 2. So the two numbers that I have to stay away from in interval notation, I'm going to have to show negative 2 and positive 2. Now, sometimes I will just let you on a test situation, unless I specifically say it has to be written in interval notation, you can just tell me x's can't be equal to negative 2 and 2. But if the answer asks for interval notation, you're going to have to write it that way. So I'm going to just make me a quick graph, negative 2 and 2, because those are the numbers that are going to have open circles. So I've got to show I can use any number to the left, I can use any number in between, and I can use any number to the right. I have to skip negative 2 and positive 2. Here's how you write the interval notation. This is going to be a little bit longer. I can come from negative infinity to negative 2 with the parentheses. Do not put a bracket. I can go anywhere from negative 2 to 2, parentheses again, do not put a bracket. And then I can go anywhere from 2 to infinity, parentheses. There would be the interval notation answer for my domain. All right, look at number 8. On number 8, since there is no fraction, I don't have to worry about anything on number 8. There's no way I can get a 0 in the denominator if I don't have a fraction to begin with. So on this one, I can use any number in my domain. So that would be all real numbers, but if you're going to represent it with interval notation, that would be any number on the number line, negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, on this next one, let's look at this one. If I am going to set x squared plus 9 equal to 0, let's think back. In order to find domains, we need to try and factor, if we have a fraction, we need to try and factor that. So can I factor x squared plus 9? Think about that for a minute. If you're writing down on your paper x plus 3, x minus 3, you need to think again. Because x squared plus 9, yes, you have perfect squares. 9 is 3 times 3. But remember, to factor perfect squares, it would have to be the difference. So this particular problem is not factorable. If I can't factor it, I can't come up with factors to set equal to 0. That means that you are going to have, again, you can use all real numbers for your domain. I don't have to worry about any number. So I can use negative infinity all the way to infinity. Now, something we haven't talked a lot about are square roots. We're going to have a whole chapter on square roots, but let's look at these. The thing with square roots, let's write over here to the side. Square roots, let's say it this way. The underneath part of the square root has to be greater than or equal to 0. It is bad to have a negative under a square root. So this time, instead of having to factor, I'm not really having to factor on these. I'm having to take the underneath of the square root, and I'm going to set it greater than or equal to 0. And then I'm going to solve that equation. We're going to subtract 5 from both sides. So x's are going to be greater than or equal to negative 5. That means that if I went up here into this original problem and I put any number greater than or equal to negative 5, I could work this out. If this ended up being a negative underneath here, I would not be able to work it out. That's something we're going to talk about later, but you can't work it out at this point. So to show interval notation for this one, I'm going to mark my negative 5. This time I can have a bracket. So I'm going to have a bracket and then going to the right because it's greater than. So interval notation would be negative 5, comma, infinity, parentheses. So let's do the same thing for this next one. And notice they use g of x on this one. Remember I told you you could use g of x as a function notation. All right, so let's take the underneath and set it greater than or equal to 0. And then let's solve it for x. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And I'm going to have negative 4x greater than or equal to negative 2. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. And what's going to happen to my inequality when I divide by that negative, it's going to flip to a less than or equal to. And then negative 2 over negative 4 reduces to 1/2, and it's positive. So if I'm going to make a little quick sketch before I do interval notation, I've got a 1/2. It's going to have a bracket because I have the equal to and it's less than, so my arrow goes to the left on less than. So interval notation is coming from negative infinity to 1/2, and then I can have a bracket around the 1/2 because I had an equal to in my inequality. So functions are special parts of relations, and you're going to do a lot of function notation, especially when you get to Math 112. You're going to see that a lot. Be sure to email me, call me if you have questions. Sometimes this can get confusing, and I want you to be sure and get it really good and tight before you have to go to 112.